What's going on, guys? Greg here from Buy or Build. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm very excited to give you guys my 10,000 mile review on my 2023 Honda Civic Type R. All right, so let's get down to the reviews, and then we're gonna talk about the car, the history of it, how long I've owned it, what I do with the car, and then we'll get in, give you a drive, and give you the overall experience, and then we'll finish up with some final thoughts on the car. 10,000 miles is a milestone, literally, for this car. I've owned 65 cars in my lifetime. I think this was car number 63 or 64, can't remember, but it's been some time since I bought a car. I recently picked up a 1992 Mazda RX-7, which I have been enjoying very thoroughly over the past couple months now that I have some more toys to play with during the nice summer days. But yes, owned this car since December. This is a Type R number 431. I think the VIN is a 94. So it is one of the first batches of Type Rs to really hit America. First week of December is when we got this car. I was on the list for that dealer to get this allocation. Their first FL5 Type R ever. The sales managers got greedy and eventually they wanted to get $12,000. When I had asked for purchase orders and written orders like that, they always came up with excuses as to why they couldn't give me a purchase order that day, guaranteeing the price. Finally settled on $6,800 as the final markup on the car. I didn't have to pay any additional accessories or upcharges. It was just MSRP plus the markup plus tax, title, and whatever DMV fees are associated with it. But I think $6,800 to get one of the first FL5s in the Northeast is a pretty fair price. People are paying that or more still right now. So I think waiting till now to try and get one for cheaper may have not ever happened. I know some people pay a little bit less, around $5,000. I've heard some people get MSRP, some get $2,500. But in New York, that is unheard of. This dealer was only 20 minutes away from where I lived, and I searched over 30 different dealers in the Northeast, gave them calls, every single one of them offered deposits, and not a single dealer could beat what I paid from this dealer, even after I came up in price. At the time, my only other car was a 91 NSX Turbo, which actually has been in the shop since Thanksgiving. So I was borrowing my fiance's Civic, so I was driving her car for quite some time, and before she went back to work in the new year, I needed to find a new car. And that's why I really agreed to come up in prices, because I really needed to secure a car. This car does not really depreciate at all. Even though you're paying a markup on these cars, they're still holding value very well. The FK8s are still holding value very well. So if an FK8 is worth $40,000 trade-in, are you gonna get an FL5 for 44 at sticker? Probably not. You know, you get more on the trade-in, you're gonna pay more on the new car. You get less on the trade-in, hopefully you pay less on the new car. As far as trade-in values, I haven't really toyed with the idea of selling this car or trading it into anything else, because I can't think of any other car that would be a good replacement for this and still cover all the necessities that I need out of a car like this, because this is my daily driver. I drive this car everywhere, take it on trips. I go to the mountains to go skiing when it was winter. I take it on beach trips. I bring my dog everywhere I go. My fiance, family, and friends ride in the back of the car. I've had patio heaters in this car, like up to 4 of them in this, 4 wheels, 4 tires. It holds a lot of stuff, and that's very rare to find in a 4-door car that you can drive on the track, that gets 30-something miles a gallon on the highway, that can take regular gas if you want it to. It says on the gas cap that it takes 87 minimum, which is crazy. You would think that a Type R requires at least 91, but for some reason, it can run 87, and that's just due to the knock sensors pulling timing and things like that. If you guys want to drive on the highway and you're not hitting boost, throw 87 in there. I've done it before, save a few bucks. A full tank of gas will get you about 220 to 250 miles, the type of driving that I do at least. And the gas tank's about 10 to 11 gallons, and I average around 22 to 23 miles a gallon between city and highway. If it's all highway, I've seen this car hit 34 miles a gallon. The car's efficient. It does everything I needed to as far as transporting things and getting me to point A and point B I've hit the track 3 times with this car with numerous different mods that I've done in between each track days, and I've just noticed that the car gets better and better with the mods that I do for the track. Let's go for a drive in the Type R. Pretty dirty right now. Didn't get a chance to wash it, but this is how the car looks 90% of the time. So I want to give you a realistic review of the car. You know, it's not cleaned whatsoever. I got my dog pad in the back, some fur back there. I do keep it relatively clean though. I have a car wash subscription. Just had it vacuumed and washed about a week ago. Here's the trunk. Using the Type R for what a Type R should be used for. Everyday driving, track use, and putting on very enjoyable miles. I got this like a little HKS towel that looks pretty sick, and it like fits perfectly there. When we hop into the inside of the car, you know, my interior is pretty standard. I have my Lays Fit all-weather floor mats. I have this Amazon gadget. It clips into the honeycomb, and there's this powered phone holder / magnetic charger, the MagSafe charger. So when I put my phone here, when the car's running, the arms automatically close, and there's like this little sensor on the back that opens and closes it automatically. Over here, I have a tempered glass screen protector. It's not like a matte finish or anything, it's still glossy, but you can see that there's cutouts for the buttons and the knob. I put this on, all this on, when I really first got the car back in December, so it's been over 9 months since I've had this car and put all these accessories in. I have my dash cam here that I'm still too lazy to hide the wiring and hardwire it. The interior is really nice, huge upgrade over the FK8. You know, the whole entire car has been upgraded. Visually, the powertrain is pretty much the same exact thing. So driving the FK8 versus driving this feels very, very similar. The dynamics of the driving is very similar. But when you hop into this, you feel like you're sitting in a luxury car, like an Acura. Seats are by far the best reclinable bucket seats I have ever sat in that comes factory in a car. I've owned the Recaro Sportsters in my Supra, and I don't even think that those were as comfortable as this. And I don't have any more squeaking. Every time I moved or anytime I hit a bump, you would hear the bottom of the welds continue to squeak, and that was awful. I drove around like that for a few months, and it got progressively worse and worse. And then I think back in May, I got the recall done, and that's when they scratched up my pillar there. But let's turn the car on. I'll show you some of the features that I really enjoy about the interior. You know, when we start the car, we have the digital cluster, and up top you have the rev limiter. You can see the arms just closed on my phone mount, but I love the look of the new Plus R cluster, and hopefully the camera angle is facing it so that you can see it properly. But I love the tachometer is a bar on top, and then red line is a honeycomb shaped the same way as the vent grills. I really love the center display with all of the gauges. So you have the, starting from top left to bottom and then right to bottom, you have the coolant temp, you have the oil temp, oil pressure, ambient temp, then intake air temp, and then the vacuum and boost. So you can see, you know, when I rev the car, everything is very, very smooth. The tachometer moves really nicely. Hit 10K last weekend, but I didn't get a chance to prepare this video for now, but 10K is 10K. We've had 9 months on this car, so we're averaging about 1,100 miles per month. I absolutely love sitting in this car. The steering wheel, I love the leather on this. My LE FK8 had the Alcantara wheel. Wasn't a huge fan of Alcantara because in the summer your hands get sweaty, and Alcantara is pretty high maintenance, especially if you're touching it a lot, and it gets kind of like nasty, so you got to clean it. Everything else is pretty standard on, you know, Honda. You got the start buttons here all the time now. The stalks are all the same as, you know, last generation. I do enjoy the Bose sound system in this car. The subwoofer sounds absolutely incredible. I think it's probably one of the best sound systems I've ever heard come out of a Japanese car. The Sony systems that come on the Acuras also sound really, really good. When I sat in the RDX for the first time, I listened to the audio, it was insane. So my favorite features, I already said the cluster with the race-inspired shift light. It looks exactly like the one that I have on my AEM digital dash. In here, you know, we have the data logger. This was something that is also new for the 11th gen. So all the gauges that we see there are also here, and you can also go through the settings and program this to go to whatever you want. So you can move these numbers around, you can show less numbers, you can show more. You got a G-force meter over here. This is just a different type of display. But you can data log when you're on the track. I don't think the oil temp is a true reading, whereas I think the oil pressure and the coolant temp are true readings. So, and then they, based on the calculations, they estimate the oil temperature, but it seems pretty reasonable and accurate to me. Love Apple CarPlay, use it all the time. The big upgrade for this year, I really enjoy that it is wireless CarPlay. So, you know, no wires, phone goes on, and I have my Apple Maps, my Google Maps, Waze, whatever. It's all in there. Spotify too. SiriusXM, I pay for the subscription. It's like $5 a month. If you let it expire, they send you that deal. I don't really use any of these other features that we have in here. I'm either on Apple CarPlay, SiriusXM, or on Honda Logger. The shifter is by far also one of the best shifters I have ever used. I think Honda sports cars, they do really well with their shifters. The S2000 shifter is untouched. This one, not as good from the factory, but we've already done all of our transmission, shifter, bushing upgrades and cable bushings. We also did the D10 springs. We changed the transmission fluid. I changed the base shifter bushing, so the shifter has tightened up significantly. The feel is so much more there. You know, when I'm going into gear, it's a very confident shift. There's no like extreme amount of play when you're in gear. This is still a completely stock shifter. We just changed out the bushings. It's not a short shifter or anything like that, but I really enjoy the way that it feels. It's definitely helped for daily driving, and it helps a lot for track days as well. We also removed the clutch delay valve from the slave cylinder, and basically what that does is when I let out the clutch pedal, it will engage into gear a lot faster. Well, not a lot faster, but noticeably faster than if you were to have the clutch delay valve. The purpose of the clutch delay valve is to prevent a large amount of shock going through, you know, your drivetrain. But if you guys aren't doing burnouts and banging gears all the time, like you can race a car on the track and not be banging your gears, you can still shift properly. Then removing the clutch delay valve, I think, is still a really nice upgrade, and it's completely free. Right now we're in individual mode. This is where I keep it majority of the time because I have the settings perfectly to how I want it, as far as like suspension comfort and the engine mode and things like that, the steering feel. I think it's like half plus R, half sport mode, but it's not too aggressive. And I really love the plus R display. I never really used the circular gauges or anything like that. Not a huge fan of those. But immediately, you know, off the bat, this is my daily driver, so it's gotta be practical, it's gotta be comfortable. And the reason why I love the Type R is because it's a car that can do everything above, you know? You can track it, you can daily it, you can make it your weekend car, you can make it your winter car, you could do whatever you want with it. You could take it out on a trip, put a roof rack on it. It's got a huge trunk, you can put the seats down. I've had 4 wheels, 4 tires in this car. I've had AC units, 2 of them. I've had patio heaters. Like, I use this car for absolutely everything. I transport my dog with it. I drive myself, my fiance, sometimes my family and friends. I rarely have people sitting in the back seat, but when they do, you know, they're saying that they're very comfortable and that they don't have any issues with it. But you can see I'm driving this car very, very normally. It is extremely tolerable, very forgiving clutch, easy to drive car. This car is just so good at everything. I don't think there's another car that I can think of that would replace this and do everything that this car does better. You know, if I get an SUV, you know, I lose the fact that it's a trackable car. You're probably not going to get a manual transmission. If I get the Corolla GR, you know, the interior is definitely not as great as the Type R, and even on the track, it's been proven that the Type R still outperforms the Corolla GR on the straights, and I think on the turns as well. No point in getting a Corolla GR. I had this car first, and then the Corolla GR came out. I was not entirely impressed with how the car looks on the inside. Pricing is about the same. You know, the markups are anywhere between 5 and 20K, depending on the dealer, and I guess the Edition Corolla GR is also a little bit smaller of a car, and I need the extra space that the Type R offers. And I also, the reason why I bought this car is because I had an FK Type R before this, and I really fell in love with that car, how it drove, everything that it did so easily that there was no point in not getting the FL5. Yeah, but I just love how responsive this engine is. The turbo is like the perfect size for this car. I tell a lot of people that it doesn't really need a tune or anything like that. You know, people who track this car, I think the power level is perfect the way it is, and the handling and the brakes is really all I care about in this car, because I still have my powertrain warranty. The auto rev match is really good in this car. You can kind of hear the artificial noise coming from the engine, but if we switch it to comfort mode, right, the car just becomes a lot softer. It's toned down, but it's still fast. So I don't think the car loses any power when you switch to modes. Throttle response completely changes, making it just a more comfortable, smooth ride versus if you're in Sport or Plus R mode. Right now I'm just cruising. The suspension gets more comfortable. Even though these are back roads, I'm gonna put it back into, you know, let's put in Plus R for what the heck. I only put Plus R when I'm on the track, but you know, we got some nice back roads. There was a sign for utility work, so just gotta be careful. And if you want to downshift, I do have upgraded brakes in this car, so it's gonna stop a lot more quickly than stock brakes. But like, look how quick this car is on the back roads and the corners. This car doesn't need more power to have fun. The handling and the braking, the shifter feel, that's what I love about this car. I don't need anything more. The car is all about balance. I didn't see any utility work at all. Yeah, these are pretty smooth roads, not too bumpy. I know a lot of people complain about the suspension being too bumpy. I mean, for a daily driver, you know, it's definitely not as comfortable as other options out there like base Civics. Even in individual mode, like when you set the settings to how you want it to drive on a daily basis, I think that's the perfect way to do it. Having comfort for everything or sport for everything, I don't think is good for me personally. Like, I'm never in just sport mode. I'm always in individual mode because it's a hybrid between Plus R and Sport, the way that I configured it, and it's perfect for me. I also don't like the way the circular gauges look. I mean, they're fine, but you lose the gauges like these. So I always leave it in individual, so that way my eyes are focused forward and I see everything here, right, center, and in front of me. So I think this is the best looking setting by far. I have a lot of back roads, I have a lot of city driving, and I have a lot of highway driving. So my 10,000 miles is a very good mixture of all types of driving. I've driven this through the mountains in the snow. When I first got the car, I did ski trips with this car, so I had winter tires on this, so I was driving all the way up to like Massachusetts and upstate New York. And my alignment is also track oriented, so the toe is a little bit towed out in the front, a little towed in the rear, and I have 3.5 degrees of negative camber in the front, 2.5 degrees in the rear. So the car is meant to take turns really, really well. I set it up the way I wanted to set up, and on the track, the tire settings and the alignment settings that I have right now, I think are perfect. I don't think I needed rear camber arms because based on the contact patch on the rear tires, when I had the tire pressures adjusted for the track, it never really got to the edge of the sidewall like the fronts do. So I don't think any additional camber in the rear would really be all too beneficial. But 3.5 degrees in the front, I think, is absolutely perfect. Start tire pressure around 25 to 28 PSI cold. If it's raining, you want to start a little higher. If it's a hot day, maybe start a little bit lower. Some things I've heard from my friends who do a lot of track days and are pretty much in racing leagues, they say you want to be around 33 PSI to 35 PSI coming off the track. So it's a good idea to keep an eye on the tire pressures. And you know, that was one thing I wish the Type R had, was tire pressure system that showed you, you know, the pressure in each tire. I think that would have been a really helpful tool for this car to have. And that reminds me of the one other thing that I dislike about this car. The Apple CarPlay is a little finicky, so if I'm listening to like Sirius XM or the radio or whatever, and I turn my phone on, unlock it or whatever, then all of a sudden the audio switches back to my iPhone audio and goes off the XM that I was originally listening to. And then if I shut my phone off, sometimes it will stay like tied to my iPhone audio for like 5 seconds and then go back to the XM. It gets very annoying. Besides that, I love this car. There is nothing else there is to really dislike about this. And that's why I see myself keeping this car for quite a long time. I hated on the FK8 for the longest time until I finally drove and owned one, and I completely changed my mind about Civic Type Rs. So yeah, final thoughts? Let's jump right to it. All right, so we are back. Let's talk a little bit about ownership costs and maintenance. I know this car is brand new, it's not even a year old, but we can talk about insurance and fuel and type of maintenance that you would need to do at 10,000 miles. So I'm on my third oil change right now. I did my first oil change at 1,000 miles when the car was broken in. I didn't break this car in per Honda's suggested break-in period, like drive it easy for 600 miles. I drove this car hard since the day I got it, and I have no issues. I have proof to back it up. I've done 2 Blackstone Lab oil analyses, and they both came back as expected, very clean. So after the first oil change, I did at 4,000 miles, I switched to HKS 5W30 Super Premium Oil, sent it out for an oil analysis, came back squeaky clean. And at, I believe, 8,000 miles, we changed the oil again. We switched to Motul 300V 5W30. That was expensive oil. It's $120 for 6 liters of that. But luckily, since we bought from FCP Euro, the oil changes are free lifetime. So all I have to do, spend my $120 for the initial oil. When I'm ready for my oil change, buy that same oil for $120. When that comes, I drain out the old oil, put it back into the bottle, and send it to FCP Euro. They're only an hour away, so shipping for me is about $10. And once they get it back, they give me store credit for the $120 that I spent on a second order. You can do an oil change every day if you wanted to, every week. Doesn't matter who does the oil change, you can do it, a shop can do it. As long as they get that oil back, it doesn't matter. And it has to be for the same car, so you can't do like oil changes for 15 cars at the same time. You would have to have a separate order for each of those. But $120 oil changes for 15 bucks a time, worth it. Let's talk about fuel. You can run, as I said earlier, this car can take 87 gas and it won't hurt the car because it says 87 minimum on the door cap. So 87, about 10 gallons per fill. We're looking at around $37 for a fill based on average New York prices. If we get 93 octane, that's around $45 per fill up, and you get anywhere between 200 and 250 miles per fill up, so that's 20 to 25 miles per gallon. And the insurance, so insurance it's really a factor that I can't tell you what my cost is going to be versus yours. It all depends on your age, your driving history, your credit score, I'm pretty sure, and even where you live. So in New York, in the suburbs, probably going to be on the more expensive side. Pretty clean history. I don't have any points on my license right now. No at-fault accidents, and I think I'm around, for this car only, out of the policy, I think it's at like $200 a month. And then if I add in my other car, it puts me at $300 a month total. So this is my daily driver. I put a lot of miles on it, so that's why the Type R carries the higher insurance premium. Every once in a while, the infotainment or the cluster will like lag out or freeze, and then a few minutes into the driving, it will just come back. So just electrical, technical glitches, I would say, but mechanically, this car has been flawless. Like I said, I've done 3 track days with this car, no issues at all. So that's it. If I'm gonna give you my final thoughts, I think based on everything that I've told you so far, I love this car. This is objectively the top 3 cars that I've ever owned out of 65 cars. When I say objectively, I'm not talking about like which is the sickest car I've ever owned, which is the fastest car I've ever owned. I'm talking about all around best value, best driver's car, can take you to work, point A to B, handle everything that I needed to. One car, I guess this would be it, because my RX-7 is not gonna have 4 doors and carry everything I needed to. My NSX is only a 2-seater. If I were to trade it in right now, I would probably only lose a couple $1,000s. Mostly, I would lose out on all the mods that are irreversible and can't get my money back, but I don't have any plans to sell this car anytime soon. I think I'm gonna keep this one for a long time until something else comes out that can do everything that this car does. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it was pretty long, but I really think I provide you guys a lot of insight. And if you guys enjoyed this content, if you're not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe for more content. Smash that like button, and we'll see you in the next one. See you guys.